Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bloomberg UK, a special focus on the biggest challenges facing the British government, the economy, financial services and markets. I'm Francine Lacqua here in London, and today, gender diversity in corporate Britain. The finance sector and the City of London in particular face growing scrutiny in the aftermath of high-profile sexual harassment scandals this year. UK lawmakers are also now investigating whether firms are doing enough to tackle pervasive sexist attitudes. Now, the inquiry will look at whether misogyny, sexual harassment and stubborn pay inequality have been sufficiently addressed. Almost 20 women have recently come forward with allegations of harassment against hedge fund titan Crispin Odey, which he's denied. There were also multiple claims of sexual assault by employees of Britain's largest business lobby group, the CBI. What about the pay gap? Well, the sector is, of course, lagging when it comes to compensation and career progression. Women in financial services earn, on average, around 26% less than their male counterparts. That's double that of the wider workforce. And the share of female leaders across top financial firms increased just 2% or 2 percentage points to 35% last year compared to previous years. Now, the statistics, of course, are a stark reminder of the lack of progress in gender equality in the workplace. So let's discuss all of this, maybe find some of the solutions that some of the companies are trying to put in place with the AllBright Chief Executive, Viv Paxinos, Childs Farm founder, Joanna Jensen, and we're also joined by our very own London Bureau Chief, Ruth David. So thank you all for joining us. Ruth, you're the mastermind of a lot of the stories, investigation that really Bloomberg puts forward on these very important topics. We need to break it down. So, of course, sexual harassment is not the same as gender pay. But if you look at some of the metrics that we cover, certainly on a weekly basis, is there anywhere where women have been leading, where they've been doing better because of society understands the need for diversity in businesses?
I wish that were the case. You brought up Crispin Odey. The thing to remember is Bloomberg and a few other outlets have been writing about his alleged misconduct for years, and nothing has come of it. There's a question about whether the regulators are doing enough to change behavior and whether there are enough institutional barriers in place to ensure that men at the top that have so much power when they're controlling entire organizations, there are checks and balances around them. And to bring us back to the point around pay disparity, and maybe, Vivian, I would love to hear your views on this, because some top male executives in the finance industry say that it's actually not a question of discriminatory pay, it's a question of there being far fewer women in the industry. And is that true? But is it also true that women are being discriminated against?
Yeah, and one of the questions, of course, that we've been trying to work on is if you're, a female and you're rare and far between, maybe you should get paid more if there's a competition to attract you in some of the top banks. So, Viv, when you look at AllBright, you do some amazing work trying to bring women together, and it really starts from a very simple philosophy that men have had networking for a long time, so you get to know each other, you help each other out, and you're trying to recreate this for women. When you have your membership, AllBright, what do they come to you with? What do they need, actually, in terms of support?
Absolutely. So AllBright is about supporting women across all stages of their career, and I think that's key to what we do, because when you look at senior women and the attrition we have at that high level is quite high. So I feel that in order to drive that systemic change, we need to be thinking of the future pipeline of leadership. So I think organizations are not doing enough to support those middle managers to go to the next level. From an AllBright point of view, what we do is three things. We support women from a networking point of view. We create safe spaces for them to cross-industry network, and we know that women who have networks are more likely to stay in their roles. One of our latest piece of research called The Future of Work, and it surveyed over 2,000 women, found that 38% of women are actively looking for new roles. If you think about that in the context of Bloomberg, for example, you've got 20,000 employees, 33% women. That is 2,500 women actively looking.
But is that good or bad? Does that mean that they want career progression, or is it because they're unhappy with
their job? But they're not staying long enough. So only 10% are staying for longer than 5 years. So they're not progressing in the organizations, which is going to create a huge issue for a lot of the large corporates. So what we do is create a space where they can network, where they can find mentors and have the upskilling they need in order to achieve their goals. So our mission is about removing all those barriers in the workplace.
Joanna, you really deeply believe about this. You basically founded Childs Farm, and you basically had to go through the difficult things of finding funding, of getting support. What did you find as you grew Childs Farm into something quite big and very recognizable? What was the hardest stage as a female entrepreneur?
Well, I have to say, look, I worked in the city. I left nearly 20 years ago now, and it really disturbs me that we're still having the same conversations that we had nearly 20 years ago right now. But for me, I'm quite a punchy individual, but even so, I had to jump through, I would say, extraordinary hoops to get the attention of men. I mean, not forgetting as well, I did a baby and child product, so that's not a serious product, is it? You know, regardless of what it was, I was running a business, and I was running a business that was really hugely successful and grew incredibly quickly. But I can say, you know, now that, you know, of my 26 shareholders, many of them never actually asked me a question. They would ask my business partner a question, and I might call him my business partner because he was the second largest shareholder and he did a huge amount to help me with the business. But whenever there was a question when it came to the Articles of Association or growth or a relationship with a retailer, it never came to me. It always came to Andrew. And we used to laugh about it. But, you know, and we would talk about behind the scenes and sort of say, he'd say, listen, can you deal with this? Or he would say to their faces, you know, that's a question you need to be asking Joanna. But, you know, I've been described as being emotional. You know, in a man, it would be passionate. You know, you have to be pretty punchy to cut through the noise when it comes to starting up a new business. But let's not forget, as a woman, even now, this has grown. According to the Rose Review, we are getting less than 2% of investment capital that's available in the UK, which is miles behind our European counterparts and those in the US, because we are still not taken seriously as businesswomen.
But Joanna, what I don't understand is that, you know, some of the rooms that certainly, you know, we walk in, Ruth, have changed over the last 5-10 years, right? It used to be male only. Now there are many more females. When you speak to bank chief executives, they say, look, we want to support more women. So is it the greenwashing of female inequality, or is it just that we're progressing but at a glacial pace?
I think it's a bit of both, actually, and I think that's a really good summary, Francine, because what I'm seeing is we're still overwhelmed by, what's that wonderful expression, male, pale and stale. You know, these are people, you know, let's just go back a second. 65% of all shopping money, if you like, for want of a better word, is actually in the hands of women, and yet we are running businesses largely run by men. And until we can have boards or senior leadership teams which are representative of their consumer, you can be as empathetic as you like, but until you are representative of your consumer, I'm not sure how you're going to deliver to them. And because we base everything, economics is based on GDP, we're expecting growth at every single avenue. So we're putting so much pressure on people to deliver where they don't have the skill. Bring a woman into the mix and you're getting a much more diverse opinion. Likewise, you know, it could be somebody who is transgender or gay, or it could be someone young, or it could be someone old. But if you know what your market looks like, you should have representation that reflects who you're selling to and what your market is, if you want to win, surely. But we seem to be still stuck in this arena. It's kind of like you know, someone waves a flag when they've got a woman on the board. I'm a great believer it has to be the best person for the job, regardless of what gender they are. But you also have to embrace diversity of your consumer, diversity of your customer. And if you don't, I'm not sure how you're going to get this growth.
And that flag waving, and I would like to bring you in, Viv, on that. Because, no, you know, you just mentioned this idea of companies saying we have a woman on our board. There was a lot of that going on when the markets were doing well. So when IPOs were happening, when the tech sector was doing well. But there's this very interesting research from you saying that women were 65% more likely to be impacted by tech layoffs.
Yes.
Which is crazy, given that tech companies are majority run and populated by men.
And when you think about AI, 70% of the jobs that are going to go from because of AI come from, will be jobs that women hold. I mean, just to go back on a question you asked, I think there's a big gap between what leaders say and what leaders do. And I think there's often a diversity tick box that we need to get away from. Investing in women, investing in diversity is not a nice to have. I mean, it's very simple. If you want to, every business wants to drive growth. That growth comes from innovation. Innovation comes from diversity of gender, generations, diversity of thought. There is still 80% of employers that pay men more than women. And that has to change. So we need to see more action and less talk. And that's what we're trying to do at AllBright with the AllBright Alliance.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the AllBright Alliance, the AllBright Chief Executive of Paxinos. They're the Child Farm founder, Joanna Jensen, and our very own London Bureau Chief, Ruth David. All stay with us. Coming up, why work still is not working for many women. The discussion on gender equality and diversity continues when we return. This is Bloomberg. Economics, finance, politics. This is Bloomberg UK. I'm Francine Lacqua here in London. Now let's continue our discussion on gender diversity. In corporate Britain, AllBright has published a report about how its members feel about the future of work for women in 2023. Now it reveals that almost 3/4 of women surveyed are unhappy with the rate of career progression. 83% of women take an additional unpaid or unrecognized responsibility at work, while only 1/4 of women surveyed plan to stay in their current roles for the next 2 years and beyond. So still with us, the AllBright Chief Executive of Paxinos, Child Farm founder Joanna Jensen, and Bloomberg's London Bureau Chief, Ruth David. So thank you all for joining us. We're just getting started with a pretty heated debate on actually what needs to change, what hasn't changed, what we could do better, and everything in between. And you were talking about, so you do some great surveys, but there's also an alliance that you've put in place, which what basically pledges companies to just invest more in women?
Correct. So the Alliance is really to bring together a collective of companies who are committed to making change in the workplace and to make work for all women. We already, through all our Alliance members, we represent 280,000 employees, 133,000 women. So there's some really innovative titans in business that have joined our mission. And what we do, we start with a data diagnostic to understand what's happening in the workplace. We take that data from the X-ray that we do, and then we create a framework and a blueprint to drive success with different data checkpoints throughout the year. And then they pledge across 5 pillars. And at the end of the year, have they achieved the criteria that we've set, then they get certified as an AllBright Alliance member.
And the Parker Review, of course, is now changing what its targets look like, right? So first it was all about women on boards, but now they're saying we want people from ethnic backgrounds, minority people on boards to show diversity. The billion dollar question is, how much is having these women on boards actually making a difference to gender diversity across the organization? And while companies in the UK have voluntarily met a lot of these targets, the progress that we are seeing in terms of when you go across the management level, so even if you have a female CEO, the next level down, how many women do you have in leadership roles? And I think that is a question that we're all struggling with. And it's not just a UK issue. And we haven't even got to the very thorny topic of maternity leave yet, which the UK arguably does better than some other countries. But then do you get the same job when you go back? Is your promotion guaranteed after a year? Do you get your bonuses? And in finance, those are the burning questions.
Yeah, and this is a difficult question to answer, right? Viv, I don't know whether you have survey or research on this, is that if you have a female CEO, it doesn't necessarily translate if she doesn't have the power to change the organization into female talent retention or hiring.
And that's where there are different checkpoints throughout the year when you're doing your annual reviews, when you're recruiting, removing the bias from recruitment. So it's not just about female, but it's that intersectionality of different ethnic minorities as well. So it's removing those biases throughout your recruitment process. And it's also making sure that you use the opportunity during annual reviews to get to gender pay parity. If we close a gender pay gap in the UK, we'll be adding 150 billion pounds into the economy, right? It's a simple math equation.
Joanna, you're also an amazing entrepreneur because you successfully built the company, and then now you're trying to mentor younger female entrepreneurs to basically have the success story that you've had. Have the questions they ask you changed over the years? And again, if you're, if you're in a managerial position in a large company, what does it, if you don't have enough power to change into more diversity, like what's the right way of dealing with that?
I think what I'm seeing is definitely women that need some support. They need, I mean, I was talking to one woman the other day who had an investor come on board. They insisted on a board position and she was being bullied by this man in the board position. And I coached her through how to address that. And this was, a position of 13% of her business, and somebody, telling her how to run her business, how she was getting everything wrong. And I think part of the fundamental problem is that, men are very good at networking. And this is why organizations like AllBright, like By Women Built, set up by Sahar Hashimi, are so brilliant about bringing women together so they can network and learn from each other, and also build that confidence when they're going into a situation to really help grow. And typically, I think what I see is female-founded businesses tend to be a lot more female-heavy when it comes to their employees. But again, it depends on the product that they're doing. I think naturally what I'm seeing through SMEs is there is this natural diverse workforce, and that's brilliant. Yeah. What that needs to do is permeate through to bigger PLCs, corporates, who actually realize the skill set of their diverse workforce and how it can, I'll go back to what I said before, grow their business.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I'm sorry, can I go? Yeah. It's all about driving that growth, and leaders need to, again, move away from it being a tick box exercise to being a must-have. In order to drive growth, they need to have the diversity in the workplace. And I hear a little bit of apathy when I speak to leaders about it. Oh, we're just not investing in women. We don't want to be seen to just be doing something for women. But women and men face different challenges. It's not about excluding men, but it's just recognizing that women go through different challenges, and you need to have that gender inclusive strategy, because without that, then you don't have a growth strategy in place.
One of my favorite things in the world is actually when viewers write in and we have a male chief executive saying, look, I'm watching you at the moment on screen, and my first observation is that he's trying to recruit females, and it's actually quite difficult to find skilled females, possibly also because of COVID. So we'll get onto that in just a second. AllBright Chief Executive Viv Paxinos, Child Farm founder Joanna Jensen, and Bloomberg's London Bureau Chief Ruth David all stay with us. Coming up, we discuss the way forward for women in the workplace. In corporate Britain, we try and talk about solutions. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back as we continue our discussion on gender diversity in corporate Britain. Still with AllBright Chief Executive Viv Paxinos, Child Farm founder Joanna Jensen, and Bloomberg's London Bureau Chief Ruth David. Joanna, you've lived through this. You've had to do it. What would have made your life easier? Is it childcare? Is it actually, being recruited differently? Like, what would make a difference?
I think for me, look, I was a single mum when I was running my business, and, childcare to me was an enormous cost. I mean, I would say sort of 75% of my income went on childcare. And, let's think about these trips that we have to do, international trips. When did we ever get paid for that additional childcare we needed when we were on a trip? And that happens across the board now as well. But this whole part of the role of women within the family, and this is not stigmatizing women. It is just naturally we're extremely good at caring, not only for our children, but also for elderly parents. And I'm in that position right now where I have a mother with dementia. I have 2 teenage children going through all their exams. Everyone needs me, and I still have to do a job. And, I'm a founder. I'm made of different stuff. But if we really want to attract women into the workplace, we want to give them progression up the career ladder, and we want to reward them, we need to understand these unique circumstances that women have beyond just working in an office.
And I would say 2 other things to that. Work from home. when we are recruiting, one of the top questions we get from working parents, majority of whom are women, is what are your work from home policies? Finance companies are going back on all of that right now. How do you get women in the senior level to be there with you?
Yeah, and Viv, there was a pretty explosive article that came also from your survey saying a lot of women don't progress even if they do a lot of the feel-good mentoring, important stuff in workplaces.
Yes, and that's about shifting the mind from it being a cost, but to a value creation. So women disproportionately do a lot of that unpaid work in the workplace as well. And that adds to their burden. And what we've seen from our survey is that women are stepping down because of those unrealistic expectations. Not only do they have caring responsibilities at home, they do more in the workplace. But as a solution, as you just said, Ruth, it is around companies making sure they adopt a flexible work policy and understand what women need. And that needs to be ingrained across every organization. I was really pleased to read that Amazon is offering sabbatical to mums who need to take the summer off to look after their children. I mean, that works, right?
Yeah, and if mentoring is actually seen as a hard, P&L measurable thing, then it means that females that do that can also progress further quicker.
Yes.
And same for diversity, right? Because you want more people that, even if they look and sound different, can tell your story and can relate to you.
Yeah, controversially, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, look, a CEO's compensation should also be tied to how much diversity there is in the workforce.
I 100% agree. And it's that point you said about the P&L. We need to look at measurement in a different way and success in a different way, because we're still using traditional measurement, traditional P&L, which doesn't reflect the workplace of today.
All right, thank you all for joining us. The AllBright Chief Executive Viv Paxinos, Child Farms founder Joanna Jensen, and Bloomberg's London Bureau Chief Ruth David. Now, we also have great verticals, of course, looking at this very story. We have a full team looking at equality and inequality in the UK. Bloomberg Surveillance Early Edition is up next. Kriti Gupta in New York, Danny Berger here in London, and this is Bloomberg.